Hi. I want to make a video about springs and followers because I've been playing around a little bit and I wanted to give some of my feedback and the experience that I've had. To start, I'm shooting a P320, same gun I've shot for a long time, to Legion. Stock tube, Henning, +6, I think they call it, base pad. And I've been using the grams kits for a while now. I bought these kits, the spring and follower kits, when I bought the base pads years ago to play around in CO a little bit. Only shot a couple of matches, did a lot of practice. I've also used them shooting limited minor over the years, playing around before I really switched over to a dot, which was kind of late summer of last year. Yeah, I don't know how many rounds I have through them, but tens of thousands, like for sure, at least 20,000, something like that. A lot of rounds, probably time to replace the springs. But yeah, I've had very good luck with them. They hold 23 and they lock back. And I didn't have to do anything to the followers to get them to lock back. Or they don't like lock back early or anything. I just haven't had any issues. They hold 23, they +1 just fine. I generally load them down to 22 for my reload magazines. And I don't know why, just so they go in really easy, because if it's 16 rounds after a reload, like I don't need 23 in the gun or 24 in the gun. 23 is like enough, so I'm good. But I've been playing with these ones recently. These are the Rune Tacticals, and more recent than that, I got the MBXs. I want to start this video by saying this. I'm not trying to like diss these companies and say that they don't make good products. I just want to give my feedback from my experience, from my guns, and I guess that's that. Your mileage may vary. They may work better in different platforms. They may work better with a different setup than my exact setup, but I think I'm running a pretty standard one. I run the factory 12-pound recoil spring. It's not even a particularly new one. I don't change my springs very often. It has many thousands of rounds through it, probably could be replaced, which should, in this case, actually help the cause of these springs and followers, not hurt them, because if you had a heavier recoil spring, that would tend to fight the slide coming back. I haven't had problems with them not wanting to pick up a round and go forward. It's that the slide, you'll shoot at 24+1 and the slide only comes this far back because there's so much tension going up. But either way, I started with the Rune Tacticals. I tried them out a few months ago. I had some weird experiences with them. The first day I got them, I loaded them up to see if they'd hold 24. They did. I bought 4 of them. They held 24, which was fine. And I unloaded them, and one of the followers actually popped off of the spring in the tube itself after I had thumbed out a handful of rounds. I don't know how many. Jammed up the magazine, had to take it apart. That was kind of odd. I've never had that happen before with any other setup. And I took them to the range and tested them out by loading all of them up to 24, +1ing the gun and doing some, shoot one round, see if it would load the 24th, do a reload, shoot one round, see if it would load the very top round. I did this a handful of times, and I had a failure with these springs and followers probably every, probably every 4th or 5th time I tried it out. That was kind of the rate that they would fail. Maybe that would get better over time. It's possible that they would. I used a mag loader and did the whole massaging thing like you're supposed to. I don't remember if I ever left them loaded overnight or anything. Honestly, at that point, I was pretty over it and just said, these aren't for me. I'm happy with my old setup. So I stopped using them. I actually got reached out to by the owner of the company. He had seen that I had ordered them and knew who I was or whatever, and reached out and said, hey, how do you like them? Have you had good luck? And I told him, well, actually, no, I haven't had the best luck with them. I'm not using them right now. And he replied, that's really weird. I haven't heard of that happening before as far as the follower popping off of the spring. So he sent me some replacements. And I didn't have that same issue, but I did have the same issue of them not wanting to run at 24+1. And I gotta be honest, to his credit, he actually does not claim that they will run at 24. He just says that they'll hold sometimes up to 24, depending on the rest of your setup. MBX, on the other hand, does actually just claim, specifically with my setup, this tube, this base pad, and their spring and follower, that they will hold and reload to 24. And they do hold and reload to 24. But I had similar luck in terms of them working, actually feeding that top round. Same thing, probably every fourth, fifth, sixth time I tried this test, it would not work. It was not always the same tube. It was not always the same spring and follower. I'm pretty sure at some point I kind of swapped them around to figure maybe I've got one bad combo in here or something, whatever. Same type of thing. The problem, I never had the same problem of the follower popping off of the spring with the MBXs, but I did have a similar issue with, again, just thumbing out rounds or whatever, where the follower flipped sideways and jammed up the magazine and turned into a salt shaker. And again, you have to take it apart. And so similar issue, but not quite as bad. But I mean, either way, if that would happen when you were shooting the gun, it's going to be a complete jam. You'd have to take the magazine out and, get the gun back working again. All this to say, this is the stock spring and follower. If you see, there's a lot more meat on there. If I compare that to the MBX, it's just so much thinner, right? It's so much thinner. And this is a 13 coil spring versus the 11 coil springs on all the other sets. The ones that I've been using for a long time, they're all look the same. Here we go. The ones I've been using for a long time are the Grams kits. The Grams, they hold, like I said, they hold 23. I found them to work perfectly well at 23+1. And again, other than the issues I had with both of them being weird when I unloaded them just by hand, which it's not like I just did it how you would normally do it, just thumbing out rounds, I didn't have any issues with them in shooting anywhere else in the round count when shooting the gun. So that's a positive, but yeah, I guess I just wanted to give some feedback. If you're interested in trying out to try and get that one more round, I know there's a lot of people that are already using the Grams kits because they've kind of been the one that's been out for a few years now. And it seems like most people that I see that shoot P320s are using pretty much always the exact same setup I am. Sometimes people use Terran Tactical base pads. It feels like maybe I see more of the Hennings, but they're both good. If you're interested in trying out either the MBX spring and follower kits or the Rune Tacticals, I would do it cautiously. I would probably not just buy a whole set, slap them in there and think they're gonna work. And I wanna say too, this is not just my experience. My dad had similar experience with the MBX kit, and I know of 2 other shooters locally that had similar experience. And similar, I mean, not wanting to strip the top round, the 24th round. 2 other shooters, one of them shooting a CZ, one of them shooting a 320 at my local match. And I believe they were both using Runes. Again, I'm not trying to disparage these companies. I don't think that they're producing low quality product. I think that you are running the ragged edge of reliability when you run a follower that is that thin with a spring that is that short in these magazine tubes. I mean, it's not like, for reference, it's not like they stick out a ton. I mean, they do, like that's the Rune, they do, but when you compare that to like a factory spring, they stick out a lot more. Like there's a lot more pressure. So again, I'm not trying to say that these companies produce poor quality products, only that the idea as a whole of getting a very thin follower to work in these guns with an 11 coil spring to load the 24th round into a magazine, no matter who makes it, I think is probably just not on the reliability scale where I'm comfortable. If you're really interested in doing it, I would say buyer beware. I would say probably buy maybe 1 or 2 of them at the most, test them out. And even if you find one that works, and you can get it to work 100%, swap tubes, get the right one or whatever, I would probably say only use it sparingly because again, the springs just don't have a ton of pressure. And that's just been my experience with them. So hopefully this is helpful to somebody that's interested in getting these and they can decide whether or not they want to get into it. And if they do decide to get into them, that they can do it a little bit cautiously and have a good experience with them if they choose to do so. If you're interested in a setup that is a little bit more tried and true, and it's not just by myself, it really is certainly by many, many more people, because they have been the option for the past 3 years or so. I can wholeheartedly recommend the Grams kits because there's just more follower there, and they're not trying to give you that 24th round, so they work very well at 23. You still get lock back, which I think is a positive. I like my gun, all things being equal, which they're not, because you were talking about one more round here, but all things being equal, I would prefer that my gun tell me it's empty, other than not. That'd be preferable. And I guess that's just, that's the short and sweet of the video. Is if you want to go with something that's a little bit more tried and true, I would probably stick with the Grams kits. Had great luck with the Henning base pads. They're very good. If you're willing to try out and try and see if you can make it work for you to try and get that one extra round, I would probably advise that you go with the MBX, only because of that issue that I did have with the follower popping off of the spring. But if I'm honest, the MBX flipping, the follower flipping in the tube, is kind of functionally the same thing. It's the same thing, really. You lose all tension, the follower's not pushing up on rounds anymore, and your mag is dead until you take it apart and put it back together and, do the whole thing. So that's the video. Sorry to the companies. I hope you guys still do great business. I don't think you're bad people or that you make bad products or anything. I think that trying to get 24 rounds into these magazines is giving up on reliability, no matter who makes the spring or follower, based on what you have to do to try and get that 24th round in there. So your mileage may vary, and happy shooting.